Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota Podcast. My name is Mpho Mutlani. I've got Tim De Lace here with me in Cape Town. Tim, how are you doing?
All good, man, all good. If you've been watching my socials, I did go up north. I did go relatively close towards you, just for a couple of days. That was really good,
You
really, really
didn't come
enjoyable.
say you didn't come say hello. Um, but
But
yeah,
I'm
no,
back now.
you are further north than me. But how was your time in the safari?
Oh, it was lovely, dude. Lovely. I love that part of the world. I could spend weeks there if I had the opportunity. I love it up there. Um,
Mm.
I've always liked the bush. No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Just switch off from everything just for a couple of days was very, very pleasant.
Well, lucky you, because when you came back, we now have news of a retirement. And yeah, so we're going to be talking about all of that. I was also at the Proteas send off in Johannesburg last week as the team were preparing to go well, it was literally on their final day in South Africa for them before they left to go to the UK. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, lots have happened. But remember, please, if you want to know everything that's happening in South African cricket, please do follow us at the Full Quota Pod on X. Please do subscribe to the Full Quota Podcast on the YouTube channel to get us, to know when we go live. We're going to do a preview show for the World Test Championship. We're going to do maybe some daily shows for after every day. So please do be like and subscribe so you know when we go live, when we can talk about it, right? In the morning with your coffee next week when the Proteas are there, you can understand what happened the day before, some of the key moments, what's happened, what's changed, things like that. And then on top of that, whenever we decide to have interviews and all of that, don't be surprised. In order not to be surprised, click the bell, like, subscribe, that stuff. Also, if you like listening to the audio side, you can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Full Quota Podcast. And last but not least, please do, if you would like to support us, please do buy some coffee at buymeacoffee.com. We appreciate all the contributions to help this podcast grow from strength to strength. And yeah, and to keep you updated on a weekly and a daily basis on what's going on in South African cricket. And yeah, today we had something different planned for today's show until we got the press release that said that Heinrich Klaasen has decided to retire. It was quite surprising, Tim, that he said he was going to retire. Said it was the hardest day of his life. He is 33 years old, and I'm not an ageist, and I thought Heinrich Klaasen would be there in the next 2 years at the next World Cup. But clearly he decided not to. And I don't think he did this because he woke up one day and said, no, I want to retire this morning. I think there may be some underlying messaging that may have gotten to him. Remember, the one big thing is he didn't get a CSA contract. So that's the first thing. And then for the next year, even though I think we're trying to figure out this whole limited overs thing, right? What the contracting structure would be for that one, right? To allow players to still play international T20s and play county cricket, but we only need them for white ball cricket, similar to a David Miller, right? David is still in there, but I think my initial thought when I saw this was it leaves a massive hole in the South African top six in limited overs cricket, especially with the T20 World Cup next year. Heinrich Klaasen was very instrumental in in the World Cup last year. We don't have a chance. We don't have that 30 off of 30 if Heinrich Klaasen is not there in that final. And I think for me, I hope CSA fought as hard as they could, but yeah, because I'm really disappointed that he's resigned and they couldn't necessarily find a middle ground to have him there, even to take us to 2027. I don't buy this youngster thing. I think if someone's done it before and is able to do it again, Hans Klaasen was never on the decline, Tim, for me, even though 33 is 33, guys. He's still young. And he'd be 35 at the next World Cup. And some of your some of the great batters in the world right now who haven't retired are still playing, and they're in going to 40. I'm talking about Rohit Sharma and also Virat Kohli. Obviously they retired from Tests, but they haven't let go of India Blue entirely. So, Tim, what do you think? What do you make of this? Because I'm sitting there going, "Oh no, that top six. That
would have been that was my reaction when Faf retired. Basically, that was my reaction when AB retired as well. I was very, very disappointed. I was very worried about the future. That was my reaction, and both those guys stepping away from their Proteas setup. I'm not that worried about this. This one, yes, he's still at the top of his game. Absolutely at the top of his game. And in an ideal world, I would want him for the next T20 World Cup. Ideally, I would want him there for next year. But if you go back into our archives, I said to you that 2027 will not have Klaasen and Miller. One of those two will go. If you go back into our archives, it wasn't all that long ago, we talked about post the last T20 World Cup, who's going to be available for the next one. And I said, I had differently. I actually thought Miller would be the one that would be stepping aside, at least from one of the white ball formats. I didn't think it would be Klaasen. But if you look at it, he turned down a CSA contract in April. He turned down a hybrid one, which Miller and Rossi have as well. And if you look at where he's been playing, he turned that down because he wants to go play the 100. He wants to play in America. He doesn't want to have just the IPL as his T20 leagues. He wants to play the others. And if Shukri is telling him, you must make yourself available for every single Proteas outing outside of the IPL, I think he said, thank you, but I want to go in a different direction. This is a perfect time for me to go when I'm at the top, when I'm at the top of my game, and I'm producing the goods. It makes sense from his point of view to step aside. It is a blow, particularly the T20 format, but because of the youngsters coming through, I'm just not that concerned. I'm not that concerned.
Tim, who replaces a guy who has been this destructive in ODI and T20 cricket and consistent? Yes, he didn't play for a very long time, but I look at that Proteas top six, even at the Champions Trophy, and Classy, yes, he didn't necessarily have a great tournament, but he picked up towards the back end of the Champions Trophy, and I look at it, I'm like, that 5 and 6 combination with David Miller was our ace in the pocket, right? The ability to be that destructive, and keep you in games when games fall away. It like David Miller's always our insurance policy, right? You lose 3 wickets, David's going to score 100, because that's who he is. That's actually where you see the true batter in him. It was the same thing with Heinrich Klaasen. We found David Miller somebody who can walk toe-to-toe with him, and we can be 100 for 4 after 20, but we're still going to get to 300 because these two are just good, just goddamn special. And I'm not saying it's the same as Faf. I'm just looking and I'm like, where are these youngsters? Name these youngsters, because I'm looking around going, I don't think we have youngsters who have the same mold as Heinrich Klaasen and can do it consistently at the international level. Because you'll probably say Devil Brevis. You'll probably even mention Luanda, but Luanda is an opener, right? And I'm like, yeah, but let's see if Devil can do it at the top. But I'm not convinced. I'd rather go with the guy I know has done it for me at the international level. International cricket is different to domestic or even whatever happens in the IPL, and you guys can put in the comments and fight me. But I'm not wanting to let go of a 33-year-old guy at 33 who is the secret sauce to potentially us winning a World Cup. Both of them. And I understand we had to pick one of them, but this thing of going with youngsters and youngsters and youngsters until you push these oldies out, I want them in. Knock the door down. There was one guy who's knocking the door down, and that's Luandre Pretorius. You can tell me about Devo Brevis because he's doing it at County and he's having a great year and he's scoring sixes and he's being aggressive. That's great too. But I still don't think it's enough to push Heinrich Klaasen out or even a David Miller out. Obviously, David is still staying, but I don't understand, Tim. I'm sitting here going, and I hope I'm proved wrong at the next World Cup, but I look at that final and I look at what he did last year and him being the best player in the world last year. David Milan was best player in the world during COVID and he's still playing for England or still playing cricket. Oh yeah, he was still playing for England 3 years later, right? Not now, right? I'd have taken a punt on Heinrich Klaasen until the 2027 World Cup, even next year's one. Like, my frustration with all of this is I hope CSA have done everything because there's no way you can let him go. And even if you looked at the pipeline and all these young kids and these youngsters there waiting in the wings to get their opportunity, no one gives you what Heinrich Klaasen gives you. No one can get you 70 and 40 balls or 70 and 30 balls. No one can, you can be so behind the run rate in a T20, Tim, by overs 12. And Klaasen's going to take you home. The idea that a T20 batting innings for the Proteas is not done until Heinrich Klaasen gets out. That's now gone because I'm sitting there going, who's going to give me that? He was special. How do you replace special? Why are we fighting against special? Yes, test match cricket, we understood the team was going in a different direction. But surely, in white ball cricket, 2027 World Cup, it's David and Heinrich at 5 at 6. And then the other 4 spots, you figure out who you need to put in. I understand we've got Tristan Stubbs waiting in the wings and he can do something similar, but not at that level. One just needs to look at the IPL to see that Heinrich Klaasen was our best batsman there. Stats-wise, he's our best batsman at the IPL. Aiden had a renaissance. Tristan Stubbs scores runs. Devo Brevis looked really good for Chennai. And he looks great for Durham right now. But Heinrich, top of the pops, consistently top. Why are we letting go? Why? It feels to me like we're back to that CSA where players are retiring because they don't like CSA, not because they don't see a future in the team. It's like the Quinton resignation or retirement, not a resignation. That to me was still stupid. Quinton is still younger than Heinrich Klaasen, and the man's out here chilling, going fishing when he should be actually playing for the Proteas, right? And maybe it's a rand and dollar situation. That's fine too, but maybe it does go back to Shukri saying he wants all the players to be available. And Rob then said, "I tried." So if you want to keep these guys, you got to give them a little bit more rope, let them go play in the USA and play B teams the whole way through. But a guy like Heinrich Klaasen, and we spoke about this after the World Cup, some guys I don't need to see in Protea colours until the World Cup. He was one of them. Dev Miller was one of them. Kagiso essentially was one of them too. I don't need to see Kagiso. I know what he's going to give me, right? But the others who are fighting for positions 1 to 4, who are fighting for the other bowling positions around Kagiso, they need to play for the Proteas. And so I'm not saying that they are sacred cows, but what I am saying is Heinrich Klaasen was one of my sacred cows in that team. And whatever he wanted, could you please try and give it to him? And to a certain extent, maybe some CEO somewhere, someone made a joke to be like, we might need to get a billionaire to phone Heinrich Klaasen to promise him the world, to tell him to walk back from this decision. Because my word, he's been sensational in the IPL, and I've been sitting here going, we've got a lot of tours around the world, and this man's going to be very important for us to play. And in 2026, we still have a chance. That's literally how I like last year's World Cup, the Champions Trophy, right? We all sat here going, they haven't played well together. They haven't played together, but these guys are still world class. Miller, Klaasen, still the best batsman in the world. Last year's T20 World Cup, they showed their value. Klaasen was the best batsman in the world at the time, and he nearly took it away from India. He nearly did. And with Miller there on the side, they needed it, but now all of a sudden, we're not giving them contracts, and they want to do. We really need to figure this thing out, because there's no way, Tim, for me to let a guy like that go. I get there's youngsters. I get we need to look forward, but we could have gotten 5 years.
I think the thing is, we are hurt by what you've just said. We are hurt by AB de Villiers, Faf du Plessis, Quinton de Kock. Those three should never have, even in my opinion, even in Montoya, those four should not have been retiring for the national side when they were. There is no way. Those 4 should have been able to come to an agreement with Cricket South Africa and to phase out their retirement in a much better way for the national side, because those retirements did affect the national side. It did affect our performances. It did affect us in our last chance at the World Test Championship final. The last chance that we had to make the final, those retirements happening absolutely had a detrimental effect on the team. And all they had to do was draw against England and draw against Australia, and we were in the final. So I think we are hurt by that, and I absolutely get it. I absolutely get it. But I just think if you look at it singularly, I think Brevis has found a maturity. I think he has found a consistency. He was 6th in the leading run scorers for last year's SA20. Proteas, you don't need to be me to be a stuck record. I think Proteas is going to be an absolute star. He was the leading run scorer of SA20 last year. There has to be a time when those guys have to be given a chance. There has to be a time when those guys get given a consistent run within the team. This, to me, makes sense. In terms of age, it is crazy. You're absolutely right. Heinrich Klaasen, in terms of age, in terms of his performance, could absolutely be there for the next 24 months. Absolutely. But in terms of Proteas and Brevis' progression, this to me makes sense.
But Tim, this is the world. I'm not going to let go of my career because youngsters are coming up. They need to take my spot. What happened to that? Devil has not done enough to take Heinrich's spot at 6. Not enough. Not at all. We can see the progression. But I'm not going to move away to give the youngsters a chance. No. Imagine India telling Virat Kohli he needs to move away to give the youngsters a chance. What is this? No, Jim.
I did say to you, ideally, I would have kept Heinrich until the next T20 World Cup. That to me would have made more sense. I would have said one last big hit, one last throw of the dice at a World Cup. I think he's better for us in the T20s. I really would have said not 2027. That to me would have made more sense. But I'm not outraged in the same way that I was out of Faf du Plessis, Montoya, and AB de Villiers. I just don't have it. I don't have that outrage. I see the progression, and in my opinion, Brevis and Proteas are good enough to walk into that South African setup, white ball setup right now. I'm not saying they're going to succeed, because I'm not Nostradamus, but they are at the best. They're at the best part of their careers where I genuinely think that they will make a success.
One is 19 years old, the other is like 22.
I know.
So here's my thing, right? Heinrich Klaasen at the last World Cup, even at the Champions Trophy, gives South Africa a punter's chance. Because you know you've got one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 batters in the world batting for you. Right? We've seen what Luandre's done. We're still waiting to see what the pitfalls are. What if teams are going to adapt to his weaknesses, right? And how he reacts to that in the cauldron of international cricket. Same thing with Devil Brevis. We've given him an opportunity. He didn't do well, but I was okay with giving Devil and Luandre runway this year to see if they can push out a Heinrich Klaasen. But it doesn't make sense to me to say, oh, no, it's fine. We can let go of one of the top 5 batters in the world for a youngster who all they've done is bully domestic bowlers. And I'm being as respectful to domestic bowlers as possible. Some teams need that stardust. Klaasen was that stardust. Yes, we found him late and all of that stuff, but this Proteas team was devoid of that stardust of the Graham Smith, the stardust of Jacques Kallis. This team is devoid of that, the white ball team. Don't come to me about Aiden. Aiden's great, but he doesn't have that stardust. That stardust in that team sat at 5 and 6. And to a certain extent, yes, there's potential that Tristan Stubbs can have the stardust, but he's inconsistent. And that's what we're going to get with Luandre and Devold. And my thing with this current squad was with Kagiso, with David, and with Heinrich. That stardust remained. It's the same thing, the same argument with AB and with Faf and probably Imran Tahir, right? Is that they could turn games around for you. I'm not sure these kids could do that consistently. Yes, they can do it in one game. They can do it, but from a consistent perspective, I knew that I was going to get something from Heinrich and to a certain extent, David, right? And if David wasn't going to fire, Heinrich was going to do it. If Heinrich was going to do it, David was going to do it. Now you're going back to relying on David Miller, making him the guy to save you in all of this, and him the stardust in this team, to elevate this team from being just a good team to a great team. And I understand. I love Diego Brevis. I think he's great. I like Luandre Proteas. I think he should be playing for the Proteas. I think both of them should be playing this year. In a non-World Cup year, go play bilaterals, go play Zimbabwe, go do all of that stuff. But you know that when Heinrich Klaasen comes in, he's your number one. Because Heinrich gives you that. Like I sit there going, in a game, who's the opposition afraid of? Heinrich Klaasen. Because they know the game's not over until he comes in. And so I'm just mad at losing the stardust. What his only problem was, he came in on the scene late because he had to bulldoze his way into the team. I feel like right now we're just giving these youngsters an opportunity to just walk straight into the team and command starting positions without necessarily fighting to get that role. And I'm happy that at least there's a pipeline and the guys we can fit in there. But 2026 and 2027, Tim, I very disagree with you. We need Heinrich Klaasen. We move from this Proteas team moves out of the realm of being a contender in both of them to just being a dark horse. And that for me is not something I want to take in, because that's what Heinrich Klaasen gave you. That's what Rob Walters was banking on. Rob was banking on the fact that this man, Heinrich Klaasen, will come with the stardust. And he will sprinkle it all over this team. And he will save this team from its blemishes, even though, yes, our top 4 is not the best in the world. We know that. It may not even the top 6 best limited overs top 4. But when you add those 2 at the bottom, it changes the entire complexion. And that's what I'm going to miss. That's what I'm going to be lamenting. Because Diego Brevis is not at that position where he can do that, where he can be that stardust. We're going to get it in a couple of games here and there. In a World Cup semi-final, in a World Cup final, I'm not so sure. But I know that man who has just retired can do it, because I've seen him do it. I've seen him do it in a World Cup final. He literally single-handedly saved our asses. He got us into a winning position. We had India on the ropes. And yes, we didn't win, 100%. But can those 2 do that? Can the next crop of guys do that? Yes, they'll need time. But I don't want to go into 2026 in a rebuilding phase. I don't want to go to a 2027 World Cup that we're hosting at home with a team that needs time. Because when we lose in 26, only they need time. When we lose in 27, you're going to tell me, no, Luandre's 21, Diego Brevis is 23, 4 at the time. They need time. They have not reached their peak. then what are we doing with them in the squad? When we had a guy who is in the peak of his powers, in the prime of his cricketing career. 33 is not young. It's not a Rassie van der Dussen situation at 35. That's your questioning, like, okay, 37, maybe not, right? I'm just, Tim. Oh.
Okay, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. To go with my counter with the SA20 numbers last year, if both Proteas and Purvis are in the top 5 of leading run scorers of this year's Vitality Blast, so that would be SA20 and Vitality Blast. Does that give you any sort of put away some of your concern in the fact that they would have done it in 2 international T20 leagues and performed right at the top against quality opposition?
No. For me, it's what are you going to do in a World Cup semi-final and final? Can you do that? They've never been there. So now I have to give them grace when we get into a World Cup semi-final and final and they don't do well. And then you're sitting there going, let's give them time. I don't want to do that now. We're in a window with this limited overs team, with the squad that somehow is punching above its weight. And one of the reasons why it's punching above its weight is because of that man who just retired. Heinrich Klaasen made us top 4 in the world. It puts us in the semi-final conversation, and he had the ability to win us the World Cup. He got us into a World Cup final last year. I don't think Brevis can do that. Or that innings against India, that's my question. Can Brevis do that in a World Cup final? We don't know that. It'll be his first time. We're going to have to give him that chance to prove that to us, which is okay. But I don't want to put that pressure on a youngster. And the reason why I'm not happy is David Miller's still there. Why can't you pair them together and say 2027, you guys ride off into the sunset together, and these 2 youngsters come in? And these youngsters hang around in case there's injury. If they're both injured, fine. Yeah, play these 2 and see what we can get. But I'm sitting here going, even Tristan Stubbs couldn't beat them out. And I think even Stubbs is a much better batter than Luandre and Develt. But yet, I don't want to go into the World Cup at home and not have a team that can compete to get into the final. What Heinrich's resignation is, retirement has done, is that I go into a World Cup with a team full of promise, and not a team that has beaten the world's best and have been in these moments. I can't rest it on Aiden. I can't rest it on Temba. I know Temba will be there, but there's a ceiling to their thing. We thought Aiden had a high ceiling. He's good. His ceiling is above average to all the cricketers in the world, but I don't think he can touch the highs that Klaasen and Miller can get to. And I don't think that's an unfair. And it's not that I'm picking on him, I'm just saying it, right? And then at number 3, who's batting at 3? It was Rassie at the time. Now we need to find someone. Maybe a Rix can come in. Rix also can't reach those highs. He's showing us the ability that he can, because he's doing it at an international level. But I'm not sure that Rix is ever going to get to that classy level, right? And then at 4, it was always going to be the Stubbs or someone else of that vein. Even then, I don't think Stubbs, because Stubbs wasn't able to break through into that Champions Trophy batting lineup, even though he had a great year last year. Right? So then we're sitting here going, what makes this team great? It's 5 and 6. They're the guys. And so why don't you pair them together, sit them down and say, you're my ride or die. I'm going to 2027 with you. You guys are the guys who are as experienced enough, want to win international, want to win something for South Africa. I can see it because of the way you guys play in these moments. David Miller is spectacular in pressure moments for South Africa. So too is Heinrich Klaasen. And then you go, you're my insurance policy. I've got these guys who can hit highs. They can peak. And if we ride those waves, Rick peaks at the right time, Stubbs peaks at the right time, Aiden peaks at the right time, you guys can then take us to another level. And then we become some sort of a supernova team. What we're doing is, if you bring in a Brevis in there, you kind of lower the ability, the ceiling that this team can get to. I know that David Brevis will eventually get there, but for me, it's like 26, 27, 8, 9, to 30s. That's where I see David Brevis, but that's 2032. It's not now. And so my question then is, we may be accelerating these guys. Let these guys play. Let them. There used to be times when guys would join the Proteas after scoring 5,000 domestic runs. 5,000. They've been there, traveling the world, playing county cricket, doing all of these things, and then they come in hot. That's what Klaasen was, right? David Miller was incredible because David Miller walked straight out of high school into the setup, and he's thrived ever since. And that kind of tells you who he is. David hasn't been able to do that and hold on to it. I think Luandre might do that, and I think there's an argument that Luandre might be that guy. But do you want to then put that pressure on him in the next 2 years to be the guy who adds the extra stardust? Well, when you just want youngsters to learn their way. AB de Villiers, same thing. Took a while to become the AB de Villiers. There were times in 2007 that World Cup, AB de Villiers was just a wicketkeeper. Yes, we played badly in the Caribbean, but he was just a wicketkeeper. He showed you moments of his greatness, but we never relied on him. And is this them saying that this is the rebuild? We're 18 months before the World Cup, and we're now letting go of one of our super talents.
It isn't quite the same, but when Shukri arrived at the Test team, he said to Dean, "Thanks very much, but I'm moving on." And he's done the same here. Now, it's not the same because Dean's form was coming down, and he was not the player that he had been. And Klaasen is in begging form. But there is something in that. There is something in that. Taking an experienced guy that they know, and Shukri now wants to mold his team around the players that he knows and that he trusts. I'm not saying he doesn't trust Heinrich. I'm just saying there is a similarity of asking the senior guy to step aside and move in Shukri's direction. There is something in that.
No, there is. And to a certain extent, that's what I thought when I saw this. I was like, maybe Shukri told him that and it's that line, right? That if you're not available for everything for South Africa, I don't want to pick you. But then you gotta balance it out. Not everything is black and white. There's a bit of gray. And I do think Shukri would have given everyone a bit of gray because, like I said, those people with the stardust, Kagiso, Heinrich, and David Miller. And Heinrich Stardust is underrated largely because he wasn't a teenage prodigy like the guys you are naming and wanting in the side, right? Or even a David Miller or Kagiso, right? Heinrich worked harder than anybody else to get into the side. One can never forget what he did on a pink day when he came into the side, him and Petluguay just tearing, I think it was England apart, whatever it was. But like, and one can never forget that progression of him in the international side. And he was just a dog. He had the dog in him because he was never going to let go of a loss. Previously, South African teams, when you're 100 for 4, guys, we're going down. Case in point, 2007 World Cup, when we were 60 for 4 against Australia in the semi-final. Even the great Jacques Kallis, the team with the Jacques Kallises and the Makayas and the Lance Kluseners and all of those guys, they just died, capitulated. It was like, oh, okay, we're going to lose this game, right? Putting up 180. Heinrich was not that. And to a certain extent, him and David Miller gave you that. And that was the other thing with Faf. Faf and David Miller, there was that one time when we were in so much trouble in Australia and they both got centuries, turnaround partnership. We put up 300, we win the game, and it was that. That's what we're going to miss. We're going to miss somebody who is that insurance policy. Somebody, look, guys, it may be 100 for 4 and Klaasen's walking in, but Klaasen and David could do something, to give the bowler something to bowl at, something to change the momentum in the game. And I think of the current crop, that one player, and I hope he does it in the World Test Championship, is Rickleton. Ricks has that dog in him. Like of late, I'm looking at Ricks going, yeah, this is the guy I think we're gonna go with, right? But maybe that's what Shukri sees. He's like, no, because that's the other thing with Trippier, like with Coach Tricks, is that sometimes you just don't know, because I know they're character monsters, but Heinrich is the number one character monster. He is the guy. Overlooked. Potentially, maybe that's why he's retiring, because he feels like he's been underpaid for all the millions that he's already gotten. He might want more, which is, I think, I'll never want to count your money, man. I think you were great. But like, I'm sitting there going, that's the attitude you want. Like, even in his message, he's like, it's a sad day for him. And I don't think he did this lightly. I think it was a situation of the director of cricket and the coach saying we're moving in a different direction, largely because these youngsters, as you put it, are knocking on the door. But they can knock. And they can knock for years. And they must continue to knock for years. And we won't open.
It's like you say. I just worked it out now. Heinrich Klaasen debuted when he was 26. 26 years old.
Mm.
And the reason why he was so successful is exactly your point. I mean, I still stand by. I still think that it's time to give Luanda in particular his dues. But it does say something. He's 26. He's played a lot of cricket in South Africa. He's got a lot of numbers behind him. He knows his game well. That's largely why he was so successful, because he knew his game inside out. Whereas
exactly
the youngsters don't. I have to say they don't.
And I'm okay with that, Tim.
Yeah.
Like, but are we comfortable with them learning on the job? Right? It's not like a situation where, so for instance, like David Miller came in at a time where we didn't have a finisher. We wanted AB to bat 4, and it was that period where AB was batting at 5 and David was batting at 6, and it was kind of like AB and David were kind of doing what David and Heinrich are doing now, just trying to do that, but we never had a finisher. And even when you looked at the guys who could replace a David Miller, they were never there. We tried the McLarens, we tried Justin Kemps, we've tried Albie Morkel, but they were never just that consistent. And if you look at how some of the guys like AB de Villiers came in with the talent that they did, there was an obvious gap in that role, right? Their talent was so good that he kept out the likes of a Colin Ingram. The Colin Ingram, who's older than, just couldn't cut in because that team was stacked. But there was always a place for AB because you saw there's a glaring error. The glaring error in our side wasn't at 5 and 6. It's at 1, 2, 3, and 4, where the weaknesses are, right? You're trying to figure out whether you're going to take Tony Dezorzi. You're trying to figure out what the role is for Temba. You're keeping him because of his leadership. That's cool, but he's also putting in the runs. That's also great, but Tony's not having a great time, so Rix is in now, right? So then you're sitting there going, but Luandre can cut it with these guys. So if you bring in a Luandre in this situation, in this setup, he can make his case known. To a certain extent, even a Devil Brevis. If I was going to bring a Devil Brevis in, it was never going to be for Heinrich Klaasen, right? I would have had a 4, 5, and 6 of Brevis, Miller, and Klaasen, and maybe even move Miller to 4 to have Brevis sitting in between them to kind of give him that ability to know that wherever he goes, he's batting with a senior player. That's where I'm sitting here with all of this. I was like, the youngsters are always going to come in. Even the Matthew Bretskys, they were always going to get a chance. But their chance was 1 to 4. 5 and 6 was sorted. And that's where my thing is. It's like, I don't want to go 2 more years having to say, no, guys, they're learning their game. They're doing all of that. They must keep knocking. They'll get opportunities. They'll play. They were always going to play for the Proteas. Heinrich is not going to play every single game for the Proteas. They were always going to get an opportunity. My only problem was I need them to keep knocking, because sometimes also when you open the door too early, it just becomes like, oh no, I've always been in the side, and I never and then you don't get the promise. So I'm just not sure. But look, we've moved it on to the kids. What I'm saying now is I'm devastated at this point in time. I can't believe when I saw that, I was like, oh no. Yeah, I'm just devastated.
I suppose I'm still not. I hear the concerns. I'm still not. But I suppose it's terrible to say this, but at least it's not 2 weeks before World Cup.
That's true. Yeah, I get you. That's the only thing. So look, Heinrich stats. His stats are is a scored over 2,000 runs in 60 ODIs, an average of under 44, which is incredible out of the middle order. His career best was 174 against Australia at Supersport Park. Again, we were in trouble. We were in serious trouble in that game. Serious. And this man just did it. And then on top of that, yeah, his strike rate was 141. That's my thing. It's the highest strike rate in the team. And now you've lost that. How do you make that up?
Yeah.
Consistently, right? I know, Tim, you put on our socials, Devil took a 6 off his first, but we've seen it with other players, right? They match lights quickly and dies very quickly. And
yeah,
I just hope we have a plan to add to get that 141 strike rate back from someone else. Because it's if
this was 12 months ago, I would be a lot more worried. I genuinely would. Brothers had not been in the test squad. Brothers had not been he had not had a good SA20 last year. SA20, he wasn't all that good. I would be a lot more worried than I am at the moment. And it would just be, Luandri hadn't even made his debut. I would be a lot more concerned. I genuinely think that this timing in the long term is going to work out. I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe those two youngsters that we talk about a lot, this is the time. They are ready. They just have to prove it.
Can these youngsters win me a World Cup in 2027 at home?
Yes, they can. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay, Tim. We'll live with your optimism. I think they can win me a World Cup in 2031. And maybe a T20 World Cup between 27 and 31, but not 2027. But let's see. And look, I wish Heinrich all the best. He's one of the guys who truly, we love the story, how he got in. During that series, his debut series, he was sitting at home watching the Proteas on TV, planning to watch the Proteas in the pink day at the stadium. And then he found himself in the squad, brought in, and the rest was history. He amassed an incredible career to the point where he was the best limited overs batter in the world. T20 and ODI combined. Last year, he was unplayable. I wish we could have had a bit more of that ride, but sometimes, some guys come in for a moment and then they leave. And I'll always be grateful for the fact that you gave me a chance in a World Cup final. I'll always be grateful for that, Heinrich. Tim, I don't understand that World Cup final without Heinrich Klaasen. I don't know what we were going to do, because we were probably bowled off 120 and we would have packed it in, and it was probably one of the most embarrassing World Cup final losses ever. But he got us to the point where we could run a ball at it, 30 out of 30. And then you sat there going, oh, there's a chance. Luckily, obviously, we didn't have people to carry on what his wonderful work did, but it is what it is. But and I'm seriously worried about it. And I'll always be. But I hope CSA fought for you. But the news will come out and we'll figure it out and all of that. So, Tim, let's move on to the send-off. There was a nice little shindig that happened while Tim was in the bush. Castle Lager coming back as a sponsor for one game. There's a whole lot of pressure on the Proteas, because my thing is this: if you win this game, guys, the Proteas, they get lots and lots of money from the ICC. But I think Castle's going to continue to sponsor you, because now they'll be sponsoring a world champion team, and they'll say their sponsorship helped them. So it's a big thing for all people involved in cricket. But they hosted a send off. They had Graham Smith, Jacques Callis, Ashwell Prince, Vernon Freelander, and Makai Antini to just talk to the team about how they made their individual successes at Lords. Makai spoke about his tenfer and his inspiration being Malcolm Marshall being on the honours board and him wanting to be there like his idol. Vernon spoke about how Andrew Strauss were sledging him, and he thought him and Andrew Strauss were friends, and he used that to kind of thing. And everyone kept on saying, KG, if you get us 10 wickets, we win the World Cup. And then they said, KG, find something to get angry at, but don't shoulder barge people. Then they spoke to the batters. They gave a challenge to Aiden and the guys to say, put your name on the honors board. If you do that, we win the game. And remember, you don't lose the game in the tests on day one. You don't win the test on day one, but you can sure definitely lose it on day one. I thought it was really nice, but there were a couple of things that we noticed, right? Ashwell Prince is coming in as batting consultant. And then we've heard the news this week when they arrived in the UK that Stuart Broad will be bowling consultant for the Proteas. And so I thought they were great moves, Tim. What do you make of this?
I always like outside input, and because Cricket South Africa does not have enormous amounts of money to throw around, the consultancy is the way to go. To use it for particular series, and this makes sense. Stuart Broad doesn't like Australia. No Englishman likes Australia. There's extra incentive for him to get one over Australia. It makes sense. He knows how to bowl at Lords. He knows the right lines and lengths to bowl to these Australian players as well, having very recently retired. So it makes a lot of sense. It did feel like a feel-good moment. It did feel as if it wasn't like go out there and enjoy yourself because we're going to get done by McGrath and Warren. It felt like there's a genuine chance here. There's a genuine possibility that we come back from London with a trophy, which would be huge. Of course, it would be huge. Somebody did say, I don't know who it was, saw on social media, that it would be bigger than a World Cup. Respectively, I disagree because you play way more matches in the World Cup. But it would still be really awesome for this team to win something, to come back.
Yeah.
After all the hard work they've put in, to come back and say we are world champions would be a huge boost. And I do think you're right. I think if we do it, I think Carson Long could come on board for a longer stint, which would also be huge.
Yeah, and look, I think it'll be great, and it's good to have Castle back and SAB back and supporting the team and the like, because I think it's also quite important to do that. But yeah, look, I'm excited. I think the team was excited. Some of the players spoke, and like Kesh hasn't played cricket in 11 weeks, which is a worry, or 6 weeks. How he's been out? They haven't been playing for a while. And then obviously, Aiden and Timber giving you standard answers, which we posted on our socials. But look, I think they have enough to beat Australia. They are underdogs, and I think that's the best place South Africa needs to be in a final to do that. But a lot rests on the Stardust players, and we speak of Stardust, and one of those players is Kagiso Rabada. If you can get KG firing with the ball, he makes the life of every other bowler in that bowling lineup so much easier. And on top of that, I think he eases the workload for the batters. Yes, from a runs perspective, but just even a momentum perspective, right? KG has the ability to turn a game on its head at a drop of a hat's notice. KG doesn't have spell number 3, spell number 4 where you're tired. KG has quite good. Look, obviously it does go down a little bit, but it's still high level bowling, even at the end of the day, to what's happening at the beginning of the day. But you need to find a way to get him to come through. And I think this is the best opportunity for him to showcase that he is who he is. And yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting, right? And obviously the question then is going to be who's going to play. We'll answer all those questions in our preview part around what we think is going to happen. But there's a lot of stuff that is here, and a lot of guys are talking to Ryan Rickleton because obviously he's been named as a starter already, and he's one of those guys who, similar to Heinrich Klaasen, right? Late 20s, has the ability to be one of the best batters in the world for a period. Not a long period, and I hope it is a long period, but he can give us 2 to 3 years where he's knocking on that door. He is a guy that the opposition need to watch out for. And in English conditions at Lords, I think he could be a game changer and a game breaker. And to a certain extent, that's how Graham Smith made a name for himself. 19 years old, coming through as captain of the South African side and just body bagging England. And that's what you want, and you hope that some guys can rewrite their journeys in this game to get us to be recognized as the fourth best team. Because if we win this World Test Championship, many people are going to think that we didn't deserve it, and they might want to, in the next cycle of the FTP, be like, give me South Africa. I want to go to SA. I want them to come here. Let's get India to come here. India always come in. We love India, really do. But like, let's get England to want to come here in a non-SA20 window, and we can put the beat down on them. And then on top of that, Australia might be like, yeah, in March, let's come. Let's go to South Africa and go get our asses whipped. That's what I want. I want this to be the start. And then you unleash your youngsters. You unleash a Devolt. You unleash a Luandre on them. And you then go, and then you then say, we've got a long pipeline. The George Van Heerdens are coming too. And to a certain extent, for me, this is a massive moment for South African cricket. Win or lose, I think if we lose and we give Australia a massive fight, the world will see this. And they weren't watching our test matches because they complained that how we got there. But this team won 8-8. And it's time for us to show the world why they must never put us down. And this could be a lucrative moment for South African cricket. Win this, everyone's going to want to play you. The sponsors are going to come. Look, Castle's literally throwing you a bone on some, here you go, one game. And yeah, they had this ad, which I found kind of distasteful to play in front of the players, of all the moments in South African cricket where we were let down, where we fell short. World Cup semi-finals. They started with 99. Then they went to 2007. They went to 15. Then they reminded us of 2023 in USA, in Barbados. And then they were like, through all the moments, all the tough times, we've been there for you. And we'll continue to follow you, even when you do well. And I'm sitting there going, guys, I don't know how these players are feeling, but maybe they're happy to be here to eat the food. But I was like, I ain't sure. I'm not so sure. But I think, yeah, look, to our listeners and viewers, let us know what you think of the send-off. Let us know what you think of the Proteas chances at Lords. And yeah, it's been good. Tim, lastly, before we go, SAA, obviously we had the emerging tours. They did well. But a word on what's happening in the West Indies right now. I know Oguhle took a 5 for 43. And yeah, pace, my man.
Pace. Yeah, so
if only Oguhle could bat, he'd be there at Lords.
we will touch on this in a much more in-depth analysis. But South Africa were poor in the first session, and then they dominated because they were 90 for 1 West Indies, and they didn't bowl well, and that includes clearly they were short, they were wide, but once they got their straps in after lunch, it was a completely different kettle of fish, and they are in control. Bowled West Indies out for 240. And they 68 without loss in their first innings. Very much in control. He didn't get the wickets, but Tristan Luce deserves a lot of credit, and he's a large reason why Gillett got his wickets as well, because that extra pace. If you look at the highlights, the West Indies batters did not like him. They did not like that extra bit of pace. They're not used to it. I think he only got 2 in the innings, Tristan. But he definitely shook things up, which made it easier for the lesser, quicker bowlers to get back into their straps as the day went on.
Okay. No, but yeah, look, it's these tours are just for us to unearth and see if guys are ready for that step up. And unfortunately, obviously, the likes of Devil Beres and Luandre are playing in county cricket. I would love to see them, you know, you know, play in this West Indies A series to just see, whether we've got something here. I know we do. There's something there. I'm not denying it. What I'm saying is, why must we be forced to rebuild when we've probably got two of the most dangerous batters in the world waiting to kind of win us something? And I think David Miller wants to win us something before he retires. And I also think Heinrich had it in him as well. I know these kids are great, but they're not as good as these guys right now. Um, and you can see that, like, I'm watching Heinrich in the IPL, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh!" Before he retired, I was like, "Oh, this guy's there. He's it. He is." You have to have a plan for him. You have to figure out a way to silence him. One of the ways is actually to not actually take wickets and just let the openers just keep going, because if they're going at 140 strike rate, it's okay. Because if Heinrich comes in, he's going to go at 160, 170. So try and elongate the time that Heinrich gets and reduce the balls, which is the other thing. Remember, he used to cry about AB de Villiers saying he needs to bat at 3. Actually, he should open. Give him all the balls. AB going at 140 at the time, gave you more of a chance of winning games. And that's what we feel about Heinrich. Like, we lost a star, a really, really lost a star in his prime. And yeah, it's what it is. He's not dead. He's alive. He will be at the MLC, Major League Cricket. He'll be at your nearest 100. He'll also be at your nearest IPL. Maybe he might even be at your nearest BBL if they allow South Africans to play in December, in that early part of the BBL before SA20 starts. But hey, SA20 starts early this year, so he might not be there, but he'll definitely be there for the Durban's Super Giants, holding them up like he's Atlas, because they don't win games if he doesn't play well. And yeah, they've built that team around him. Tim, anything else that you'd like to speak of? Obviously, the Proteas this week are playing in Arundel against Zimbabwe. Hopefully we'll get sight of that on our TV screens and near there. We'll post it on our socials when we get where it's being posted. It's going to give you a sense of what Shukri's thinking and where the guys are from a batting and a red ball perspective. Some guys need to reintroduce themselves to red ball cricket. One last thing from you. Yeah. Both teams play with a Kookaburra ball. Could we not have asked the ICC to ditch the Duke ball and play with the Kookaburra ball? Like some sort of gentleman's agreement between South Africa and Australia.
I suppose so. To me, it's not a massive thing, but yeah, I suppose so. There's no reason why we couldn't have gone and come to some sort of agreement, but I don't see it as a major worry. Okay. Yeah. Just touch on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You might get your luck. Purpose, as far as I'm aware, is available for some red ball cricket and county cricket. So you might just get to see Brevis.
Again, I don't trust county bowlers. Tim, I don't trust county cricket. I think, yes, they're the best. They have the best bowlers in the domestic scene around the world. But even then, it's not pace.
No, it's not, but it's English conditions, ball moves around. That's a challenge.
No. Look, and to a certain extent, they must learn how to play their games. They must learn their games, and we want to see that. I don't want to he scored 1,000 runs in county, bring him into the team. No. David Bedingham spent 10 years waiting for his opportunity. I don't know how long Dean Alger waited for Graham Smith to retire. Jacques Callis too. Jacques Callis speaks of the first time he went to the UK. He went there as a county player to play for Middlesex. It took him years to get into the Proteas side, right? But now we're just allowing these kids to come in here and there because we're excited by young talent. And for me, it's a fundamental position. Like, I sit there, only the best of the best. Like, Graham Smith was a supernova talent. He deserved to go in straight out of high school. So too David Miller, right? And Kagiso. And we see these kids. Gwena is probably there, right? Luandre could potentially be that too, and I'm okay with him coming in. It's just the others. The others need to know their game. They need to graft. You need to bang the door down. And Devold hasn't banged the door down. He's knocking. We can hear him. We're not opening just yet. Well, we just did it because Heinrich walked out the door. And so, welcome in, Devold. Welcome in, Luandre. It's nice to see you guys. Matthew Bretsky, do you also want to walk in? I don't know who else we have as a finisher in South Africa outside. Like, that's the thing. Who are the other finishers in South Africa, Tim? In a T20 context.
Yeah, in T20.
You don't see Devold as a finisher. You see him as a middle order batter who needs time in the wicket to build an innings. Who's the other finishers in South African cricket?
Yeah. The other one is a guy who's not been consistent enough, and it's a real shame. Jonathan. Jonathan really should be that guy. He should be that guy.
But he's not.
He's not doing the business.
Yeah. Look, unless if Shooks wants to keep Corbin Bosch and make him bat at 9, and maybe we can do that, because so there's a use for Corbin in T20s that I think we could work around, right? His batting ability and his ability to hit long can make our batting lineup look a lot more like Englandish. So even if number 6 goes out, you still have some sort of a chance, right? But then
South Africa's Romario Shepherd.
Exactly. Vian Mulder's probably happy about this because he gets a crack at 6, but still not at that level. He's more of a 4 than a 6. But yeah, all the best to the Proteas. Next podcast we have, Tim, will be the preview of what we've been waiting for so long. It's finally arrived. But outside of that, remember, please follow us on X at Full Quota Pod. Let us know your comments of what you think. Sometimes, you think I'm talking rubbish. Let me know. Also, please follow us on the Full Quota Pod YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. If you bring in a comment, please like and subscribe. We're just trying to build a base. Let's see what we can do with this. Also, Apple Podcast and Spotify at Full Quota Podcast. You can leave comments there too, and we'll respond as much as we can. And then lastly, if you'd like to support us financially to get this thing going, to keep this moving, if you like what we do and you want us to continue to do it, please help us by buying us some coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Full Quota Podcast. It's been a hijacked podcast because of Klaasen's retirement, but he was so important that we gave him an hour or 45 minutes, and we spoke about other things. But yeah, Heinrich Klaasen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for all the memories. Outside of that, for myself and Tim, it's goodbye and lesale.